So I was leading an in-person women's networking group here a couple weeks ago. And at this particular meeting, one of the more seasoned business women was coaching another woman on how to close a sale. And she was walking her through a role play. And the scenario went kind of like this. So a potential customer schedules an appointment 5 days out with a sales rep, right? And they show up, they sit down with the sales rep. The sales rep goes through all the details for the first time about the product or the service, and the customer gets their questions answered. And at the end of that meeting, the customer says, I need to think about it. Give me a few days. And the response that was being coached was this: didn't you make this appointment 5 days ago? What do you have to think about? And I watched the energy around the table sort of shift at that point. You could really feel it. Everyone got a little quiet, and it was viscerally uncomfortable for me to sit through. And I honestly felt personally that it was a little disrespectful. And my instinct, was I just wanted to remove myself entirely from that. And I wasn't even the one being pitched to. So that response that she was coaching, maybe it works sometimes, but that was pressure. And stay with me here because I want to talk more about these kinds of tactics today. I think everyone at some point has been on the receiving end of sales tactics like that. And you may notice the feeling it creates. Sometimes it creates defensiveness, or maybe it's that immediate pull to just get away. But both of those are rational responses. And that moment actually got me thinking about how I see marketing shifting right now and what that actually means for you as a small business. So let's stay with that role play scenario for a second, because what happened there actually has a name. There's a concept in behavioral psychology. It's called psychological reactance. And the plain language version is this: when people feel that their freedom to make a choice is being taken away from them, they don't comply. They actually push back. And the more pressure they feel, the stronger the resistance. And this is a real built-in human response to feeling controlled. So that scammy feeling you get when someone is trying to corner you into a decision, that's reactance. And it's been documented for decades. Research consistently shows that when sales tactics feel pushy or coercive, that they actually reduce the likelihood of a purchase. That's the exact opposite of what the salesperson doing the pushing intends. But there are situations where the pressure does work, right? Where someone finally says yes just to make it stop, or just says yes, because of the pressure. But that's not a win. Research published in Psychology and Marketing actually confirmed that externally pressured purchases consistently produce higher levels of regret. People question the wisdom of their own decisions, and they feel uneasy about it. And that feeling, it attaches to the brand that's sold to them, right? So even when the pressure tactic closes the sale, it often closes the relationship too. And if you've ever been invited to one of those timeshare seminars, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The free gift, right, is real, like resort stays or theme park tickets, right? But you got to sit through hours of a presentation that's supposed to take 90 minutes, but usually routinely runs about 3 or 4 hours and is designed to wear you down and wear down your resistance until saying yes actually feels easier than leaving. So timeshare sales are just the most obvious version of something that's actually everywhere now, right? And there are some specific tactics worth naming, and I'll get to those in a minute. But first, I kind of want to zoom out a little because I think there's a bigger context worth double clicking on here. So trust in businesses and in institutions broadly has been declining for years. I did a full video on the Edelman Trust Barometer data, so I won't go through all of that again here, but the headline is this: 81% of consumers say they need to trust a brand before they're willing to buy from it. And we're not talking about liking a brand. We're talking about trusting it. And there's a difference. One is short-term and one is long-term. But here's the thing. We are entering an era where AI is making this even more complicated. People genuinely can't tell what's real anymore. We don't just have fake reviews. We have AI-generated influencers, AI-generated video testimonials that look human but aren't, right? We have AI actors, right? The ability to verify whether something is authentic is under real scrutiny right now. And the small business owners who build genuine trust now are building a moat for their brand that will be harder and harder to replicate as the use of AI compounds over time. Because the question people are asking when they interact with your brand, even if they can't articulate it, right, is, can I trust this brand? Is this real? Is there a real human actually behind this? But this is actually where the situation starts to flip and where small businesses have an advantage that most people don't fully realize yet. The brands that are going to hold on through this shift are the ones that built genuine trust before trust became scarce, right? Not the ones that figured out the most efficient way to move people through a funnel, right? The ones that actually behaved like they had something to stand behind before it all fell apart. That's a structural shift in what earns attention and loyalty today. And I want to be specific here because ethical marketing can kind of sound soft and like a feel-good concept, right? Like it just means being nice, but it's going to matter a lot more in the future, in my opinion. Ethical marketing is respecting your customers' intelligence and their right to make their own decision. It means giving people information instead of pressure. And it means being honest about what you offer and honest about what you don't. And it's about transparency. And it means your sales process feels like a conversation. It doesn't feel like a trap, right? Like those timeshares. Compare that to what are called dark patterns. So these are design and sales tactics built specifically to manipulate behavior. For example, they might create fake urgency. These could be checkout flows that add items without telling you, or subscription cancellation processes that make it almost impossible to unsubscribe or cancel plans. So these tactics exist because they can work in the short term, but they work by overriding someone's judgment, not by earning their trust. And once you recognize those tactics, your trust in that brand is broken. So the FTC actually started catching up on this, and false urgency, like those countdown timers that reset the moment you close out your tab in your browser, has been classified as deceptive. And there's been a new click to cancel rule that was finalized in 2024 that requires that canceling a subscription has to be as simple as signing up for one. So regulation tends to follow behavior that's become widespread enough to actually cause harm. And the fact that it's getting regulated tells you something about how common it got. So ethical marketing is about you being clear and direct about what you offer. You're giving someone what they need to decide, not removing their ability to say no. And here's the part that I actually find the most interesting, because I think small business owners often feel like they're at a disadvantage in marketing. And in some ways, I guess that's true. When you think about like your budget, your reach, and your resources, those gaps are real, right? But there's one place where you have a genuine advantage over any large corporation right now, and that's that you can actually be trusted because you are small. And that's what the Edelman Trust Barometer talks about in the video I did on that. But Gallup has also been tracking public confidence in institutions for decades as well. And their data consistently shows that Americans trust small businesses at more than 3 times the rate that they trust big corporations. So there's like around 65% confidence in small business compared to under 20% for large companies. That gap is enormous when you think about it. And I suspect that that gap may widen even more as AI begins to infiltrate the way that we do business. So large companies have brand teams, they have media budgets, they have campaign strategies, but what they can't manufacture is a real face with a real story and a real reason someone got into this work. Like that real human to human interaction. A Fortune 500 company genuinely cannot replicate that. There's also research on what's sometimes called the handmade effect, right? And this is when products or services feel personal and clearly created by a specific human, right? A specific person. And when that is felt, when products or services feel personal and clearly created by a specific person, people tend to value them more and are often willing to pay a premium. And that willingness to pay is not about, the technical specs or the performance of the product, right? It comes from a sense of human care and effort, and maybe even the story behind the thing, right? Which changes how people feel about the brand and actually deepens the relationship with the brand. So that's a legitimate business advantage. And ethical marketing is how you activate it. You activate it by behaving in a way that confirms what people are already inclined to believe about small businesses, right? That there's a real human or humans, right, behind it. So So what does ethical marketing actually look like? So it might look like putting your prices on your website so people can decide before they ever reach out to you. That one thing removes a layer of friction, and it signals that you trust your customer enough to make their own decision. It might also look like telling a potential client upfront, right, that results typically take 3 to 6 months, not 3 to 6 weeks, right? Set that expectation before someone says yes, not after they're already disappointed. And it might look like telling someone you're not the right fit for what they need and meaning it, not using it as a strategy to seem selective and not to manufacture the impression that you're in high demand, right? But because it's genuinely true. And that kind of honesty is rare enough that people remember it, and it tends to send the right people back to you. Remember about referrals? That happens a lot when you use ethical marketing. It might look like responding to a critical review with real accountability instead of a defensive explanation or a canned apology. Something that says, I heard you, right? I take you seriously, and here's what I'm going to do about it. And then actually follow through with that. And when someone says, I need to think about it, the response that actually serves you long term isn't, well, you had 5 days. What do you need to think about? Right? It's something closer to, of course, here's what might help you think it through. Take your time. I'm here if you need anything or if you have any questions. That might feel like you're leaving a potential lead or opportunities on the table. But decades of research, including foundational work out of Bain and Company, consistently shows that retaining a customer is dramatically more profitable than finding a new one. And retention doesn't come from pressure, right? The people who never felt trapped in the first place are more likely to stick with you for the long haul once they purchase. So these are small, consistent, ethical marketing choices, and they're what trust is actually built on. So ethical marketing, in my opinion, won't be a nice to have in the future. It will be a requirement for trust in the future. The brands who behave consistently, who treat their customers like intelligent adults, who don't try to manufacture urgency that doesn't exist or use other scammy tactics, right, are building something really valuable right now. And I believe it's going to become increasingly valuable in the years to come. Think about the last time you felt genuinely respected as a customer. You probably didn't feel sold to. You probably felt informed. You were given space. You were treated like you were capable of making your own decision, right? Your questions were probably answered in a way that made you feel supported. Remember what that feels like. And is that the experience your customers are having with you? And I genuinely love to hear your comments. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a pressure tactic that made you walk away or later regret your decision? And how did it change how you felt about that brand? Trust is built in those small but consistent and respectful moments. And you get to choose what those moments look like and feel like for your customer. So that's it. Thanks for spending time on this one with me, and I'll see you in the next one.